today, Lesson 22. On the first page of your booklet for this lesson, page 253, you'll find another one of our little reminders of earlier parts of the Play It Today course. This time it looks back to lessons 14 and 15. As usual, read through the page, answer the questions as best you can, and go back and repeat the exercises you're asked to play. Then switch the tape on again and you'll hear the answers. So, firstly, what about 9/8 and 3/4 time? Well, the two are similar in that they both have 3 beats to the bar. But the difference between them is that 9/8 time is a compound time, with each beat divided into 3. 3/4 time, on the other hand, is a simple time, and each of its beats is divided into 2. To put it another way, it takes 9 quavers to fill a bar in 9/8 time, but only 6 quavers for a bar in 3/4. As for the alternative names of the black keys, F sharp is also G flat, A flat is G sharp, D sharp is the same as E flat, G flat is F sharp, A sharp equals B flat, E flat is also D sharp, B flat is A sharp, and G sharp is A flat. When all's said and done, the music you've played so far in this course has generally been fairly slow. The time has come now to begin increasing your speed on the keyboard. The basic rule for fast and accurate playing you already know. Always start by practicing a piece slowly and gradually work up to a quicker and quicker pace. But technical exercises can help accustom your fingers to moving at a faster speed without losing control. Exercises 232 to 235, written mostly in semiquavers, are designed to develop quick, nimble fingers. The first 2 exercises, 232 and 233, are for both hands. The idea is that the left hand plays the same notes as the right, but an octave lower. The right hand fingering is given above the notes, and the left hand fingering below. Start by practicing the exercises slowly with each hand separately, and then gradually build up speed, but concentrating all the time on playing the notes accurately and evenly. Eventually you should be able to play at a fair speed with the 2 hands together. Although the idea is to increase the speed of your playing, at all costs resist the temptation to rush these exercises. Play as fast as you can with proper accuracy and control, but no faster. Exercise 232 is in 2/4 time, and you'll notice that we've marked the 2 beats in the first bar with arrows. This is where the main stress falls, on the first note of each group of 4 semiquavers. There's also a less pronounced stress on the 3rd semiquaver of each group, as you'll hear when we play the exercise for you now. And by the way, we won't be playing any of the repeats in these exercises on the cassette. Exercise 232. In exercise 233, you're meant to play each bar several times before moving on to the next. Just make sure you start slowly and stay relaxed. As your speed increases, you may start to tense up your wrist and arm. You'll soon be able to tell if you're doing this, because your wrist will quickly get very tired with the effort of holding itself stiff and rigid. So do your best to keep your arm and wrist flexible and balanced, while your fingers do all the hard work. If your fingers get a bit tired playing these exercises, that's only natural. You'll find it'll get easier with time. Here's exercise 233, without the repeats. Exercise 234 is for the right hand only. Exercise 235 is also for the right hand. Whether you're playing an electronic organ or a normal piano, there are times when you need to change fingers on a note, that is, while holding the note down. Have a look at exercise 236. At the end of the first bar, you can see that we play the last quaver, D in fact, with the second finger of the right hand. The note is tied to the first quaver of the second bar, so we want to hold it, not play it again. But we also want to change fingers, replacing the second finger by the thumb. Why is this? Simply because we need to play the next note, an E, with the second finger. If we move straight from a second finger on the D to a second finger on the E, we can't possibly play it smoothly. You can try it if you like. You're bound to get an uncomfortable bump in the flow of the notes. But if the thumb takes over holding down the D, then the second finger is free to play the E when needed, keeping the smooth legato sound. Changing fingers while holding a note down isn't difficult. You just need to get used to it. There's plenty of room on a key for 2 fingers or a finger and a thumb, so simply get the new finger in place on the key before you take the old one off. As long as you try it slowly at first, it shouldn't present much of a problem. Exercise 236 is designed to be played by either the right or left hand. As usual, the left-hand fingering is written beneath the notes. At the end of each of the first 7 bars, you replace the second finger by the thumb in the right hand and the fourth finger by the fifth in the left. From bar 9 onwards, the position is reversed. In the right hand, the fourth finger changes to the fifth, and in the left, the thumb takes over from the second finger. Here's what exercise 236 should sound like. Exercise 237 is written in 2 parts for the right hand alone. Here you'll have to change fingers much more quickly. Start by playing the minim C with your second finger and immediately replace the finger with your thumb, taking care to hold the note down. As your thumb takes over the held note, the rest of your fingers shift slightly up the keyboard so that the third, fourth and fifth fingers are in position to play the group of 3 quavers, and the second finger is ready to play the next minim. All this happens quite fast, and you may find it tricky at first to keep the right rhythm. The minims should flow smoothly together up and down the keyboard. You'll find that a little practice will soon overcome any problems. Here's exercise 237. Finally, two exercises that are in part a preparation for our solo piece, The Time Will Come, that follows next. Exercise 238, for the right hand, is in F major. Exercise 239, in C major, is also for the right hand. Notice how each bar begins with a quaver rest. The Time Will Come is a solo keyboard piece in F major. It's not especially difficult, but there are a couple of things to watch. You may find the rhythm in the right hand at the start of the piece a little tricky, but play the first few bars through slowly a few times, counting carefully, and you'll soon get the hang of it. In bar 8, bar 10 and bar 12, in the right hand, you have to change fingers while holding a semibreve. You need to get your fifth finger onto the semibreve so that the rest of your hand is free to play two crotchet thirds. Make sure you hold the semibreve right through the bar. In the left hand, the only real problem is that you often have to stretch your fingers wide to reach from one note to another an octave apart, or to manage arpeggios across an octave span. You probably won't immediately understand the way the repeats work in this piece. It goes like this. You play the first two bars twice, and then play straight through to the end of the first bar in the last line of music. Then you go back to the first line, where there's the repeat sign you first met in lesson 19 on page 217. You play right through again, up to the end of repeat sign, after the first bar in the second to last line of the music. And then you go straight on to the coda, the last two bars repeated over and over. Coda, by the way, is the usual name for a tail section tacked onto the end of a piece of music. All these repeats are very difficult to describe in words, but when you listen to the piece on the cassette, following the written music at the same time, it will all become clear. So, here's The Time Will Come. piece with orchestra for this lesson is Bach's famous Air on the G string. The piece is in D major, with 2 sharps in the key signature, and it's marked to be played adagio, slow and expressive. As long as you follow all the good habits you've picked up by now, play through the notes very slowly at first, paying special attention to the sharp and natural signs, never forgetting the key signature, and counting the rhythm whenever you need to, then this piece shouldn't pose many problems. When you repeat the first section, remember that you skip the bar marked 1, going straight on to the bar marked 2 at the start of the last line of the first page. So here is Air on the G string, with keyboard and backing. Now here's the same piece without the keyboard part. In the last lesson, you saw that any standard three-note chord can be played in three positions: the root position, the first inversion, and the second inversion. If you're a bit hazy about this, have another look at the chords set out for you on page 252 of your Lesson 21 booklet. Now, how do we choose which position of the chord to play? Well, one point is that in any chord sequence, you want to keep the movement from one chord to the next as smooth and harmonious as possible. And you achieve this effect by choosing the right positions of the various chords. Basically, the principle is to change as little as possible as you go from chord to chord. You can see what this means by looking at the examples at the top of page 262 of your booklet. The problem here is how to move from a C major chord in the root position, C, E and G, to an A minor chord. The A minor chord will have the notes A, C and E, but in what order? Well, the first thing to notice is that the two chords have two notes in common, C and E. Following our principle of changing as little as possible, we leave these two notes exactly where they are. But the G in the C major chord has to become an A. Should we put the A above or below the C and E? The answer has to be above, because then the G has to move a much shorter distance than it otherwise would. So the C major chord in its root position is followed by the A minor chord in its first inversion, C, E and A. As usual, this is all much simpler in practice than it sounds. After all, changing as little as possible when you go from chord to chord really makes life easier for you. No leaping up and down the keyboard. Exercises 240 to 245 will let you practice chord sequences in C major using different positions of the chords. The first three exercises all have the same sequence of chords: C major, F major, C major, G major, and C major again. But they will all be played differently because each one starts with a different position of the C major chord. And as you'll soon find, this changes the position of all the other chords as well. The same goes for the last three exercises, 243 to 245, which have the sequence C major, A minor, D minor, G major, C major. The first starts with C in the root position, the second with C in the first inversion, and the third with the second inversion. So what do you have to do? Beginning with exercise 240, play through the chord sequences, first with the right hand and then with the left. Change each chord as little as possible from the one before it, keeping notes that the two chords have in common and moving the other notes the shortest distance possible. If you're playing an electronic instrument, it's probably best to actually hold the common notes from one chord to the next. But with a piano, you should play them again as part of the new chord. We won't be playing these exercises on the cassette, but you can check whether you're getting them right by turning to page 264, where the correct positions of the chords are written out for you. We can't overstress the importance of these exercises. It's really essential to learn how to move easily from chord to chord until you're choosing the right position of each chord almost by instinct. So when you've worked out how each sequence should go, and check that you've got it right, play through the exercises over and over again with each hand. In the end, they should be second nature to you. It's the best possible grounding for this vital area of keyboard playing.